I never imagined that I would walk into this house alone. For 42 years, I never had to. The front door used to open with the sound of two sets of footsteps. Now, it echoes. The afternoon sun slipped gently through the living room curtains, painting everything in warm gold. It should have felt comforting. Instead, it felt like the house was glowing with memories I could no longer touch. 3 days ago, I buried my husband. 42 years of marriage, lowered into the ground in less than 10 minutes. I stood in this very living room after the funeral, still dressed in black. My heels sank slightly into the same carpet Daniel chose back in 1998. He said beige felt timeless. I used to laugh at that word. Timeless. Nothing feels timeless anymore. The couch still carries the slight dip where he used to sit every evening. The remote control still rests exactly where he left it. I haven't moved it. I can't, because moving it would mean accepting he isn't coming back to reach for it. The framed photograph on the wall catches my eye. It's from our 25th anniversary. We were standing in the backyard. He had his arm wrapped around me like he always did. Firm, protective, warm. I walked toward it slowly. My fingers trace the edge of the frame. "Daniel," I whisper. The house doesn't answer. It used to. It used to answer with his laughter echoing from the kitchen, with the sound of his boots on the wooden floor, with the low hum of his voice as he fixed something that didn't need fixing. Now, it answers with silence, a heavy silence. 3 days. That's all it took. 3 days after we buried him, and I heard my children talking about selling this house. I didn't mean to listen, but grief sharpens your ears. I was standing at the top of the staircase when I heard Mark's voice float up from the dining room. "The market's strong right now." Strong market. Emily responded, softer but just as certain. "We should at least get it appraised." Appraised. I remember gripping the banister so tightly my knuckles turned white. This house isn't an object. It's the story of our life. Daniel built this home with his own hands. We couldn't afford contractors back then. He worked double shifts during the day. At night, he came here with tools and determination. I used to bring him lemonade while he hammered nails under a single hanging bulb. We didn't have much money, but we had vision. This living room once had no walls, just open beams and cold air. Daniel stood in the center of it and said, "One day, our kids will run across this floor." And they did. Mark took his first steps right there near the fireplace. Emily learned to ride her tricycle in this very room on rainy days. And now, those same children were calculating square footage. I sink slowly into Daniel's side of the couch. The cushion still holds his shape. My chest tightens, not just from grief, from realization. They don't see what I see. They see resale value. I see scraped knees. They see property tax. I see birthday candles. They see opportunity. I see sacrifice. The sunset deepens. Golden light becomes amber, then darker. I sit there as shadows stretch across the walls. Daniel used to say evenings were his favorite part of the day. "It means we made it through," he'd say. "Through bills, through stress, through life." I close my eyes and let myself remember the last conversation we had in this room. He was sitting right here, breathing a little heavier than usual. I asked if he wanted me to call the doctor again. He shook his head gently. "Just sit with me," he said. So I did. We didn't talk about death. We talked about the garden, about whether the roses would bloom again in spring. He reached for my hand and he said something I didn't understand at the time. "If anything ever happens to me, don't let anyone rush you." I thought he meant emotionally. I didn't realize he meant this: the rushing to sell, the rushing to divide, the rushing to move on. I opened my eyes. The living room is darker now, but the photo on the wall still catches the last bit of light. Daniel's smile seems almost alive. I stand up slowly, walk across the wooden floor he installed himself. There's a small scratch near the hallway. Mark made that when he was 10, dragging a chair across the room. Daniel refused to fix it. He said, "Let it stay. It proves we lived here." Proves we lived here. And now my children want to erase it, paint over it, stage the house for strangers. I move toward the window. Outside, the neighborhood looks unchanged. Cars pass, a dog barks. Life continues. Inside this house, time feels frozen. I press my palm against the cool glass. "Daniel," I whisper, "I'm not ready." The words feel fragile, but beneath them, something stronger is forming. Resolute. This house was never meant to be a transaction. It was meant to be a legacy of love. And I'm beginning to understand something painful. The house may belong to my children someday, but the decision belongs to me, and I will not let grief make me weak. I will not let pressure make me rush. This living room is more than furniture. It is memory. It is devotion. It is 42 years of partnership carved into wood and stone. The sun finally disappears. The room settles into quiet blue darkness. I turn on the lamp beside the couch. Its warm glow fills the space softly. I sit back down, alone, but not powerless. 3 days ago, I buried my husband. Tonight, I begin protecting what he built, and this house is not for sale. The dining table used to be the heart of this home. It was where we ate Thanksgiving dinners, where Daniel led prayers, where birthday cakes were cut, where homework was finished. Now, it had become a negotiation table. I stood in the hallway the afternoon I first saw it happen. Mark sat on the left side of the table, leaning forward, elbows planted firmly as if he were closing a business deal. Emily sat across from him, her hands folded tightly, eyes sharp but nervous. Between them, papers, real estate printouts, market estimates, property tax documents, the same wooden table Daniel polished every Sunday morning. "Mom can't handle this place alone," Mark said firmly. "Handle it." I felt something twist inside me. Emily replied, "I know, but maybe we shouldn't rush." Rush. At least she said it, but not for the right reason. Mark shook his head. "If we list it now, we could get top dollar." Top dollar. Not top memory, not top love. Top dollar. I stepped slightly closer without them noticing. Grief makes you invisible sometimes, or maybe they simply forgot I was there. "Do you realize how much equity is in this house?" Mark continued. Equity. This wasn't a stock portfolio. This was the house their father built with bleeding hands and sleepless nights. Emily sighed. "It's not about money." But her voice didn't sound convinced. Mark leaned back in his chair. "It's exactly about money." The words hung in the air like smoke. I could see Daniel's chair at the head of the table, empty. He used to sit there and laugh loudly at dinner stories. He used to calm arguments before they escalated. Now the space at the head of the table felt like a missing judge in a courtroom. No one to restore balance. No one to remind them what mattered. Mark grabbed a pen and circled a number on one of the papers. If we renovate the kitchen before selling, we could increase value by at least $20,000. Renovate the kitchen. That kitchen. The one Daniel built himself. The cabinets he installed with care. The small, crooked drawer we kept because he said perfection wasn't important. Character was. They wanted to replace it, to modernize it, to make it market ready. I walked into the room quietly. They looked up, surprised. "Oh, Mom," Emily said quickly, We were just talking, about dismantling my life. Mark cleared his throat. We're just trying to help you. Help, the most dangerous word when it hides control. I sat down slowly at the table. The wood felt colder than usual. I looked at the papers. Numbers stared back at me. Large, bold numbers. The estimated value of my marriage, of my memories, reduced to digits. I'm not ready, I said softly. Mark sighed in frustration. It's not about being ready. It's about being practical. Practical. 42 years of love cannot be measured by practicality. Emily reached for my hand. We're thinking about your safety. Safety. I lived here longer than they've been alive. I survived storms in this house, power outages, financial struggles, health scares, and now suddenly I was fragile? Suddenly I couldn't manage stairs I've climbed for decades? Mark pushed the papers closer to me. Just look at the numbers. Numbers. I didn't want numbers. I wanted my husband back. I wanted the sound of his chair scraping gently against the floor as he stood up to refill his coffee. Instead, I got square footage analysis. Mom, you can't stay here forever. Forever. He said it like it was a burden. Emily shifted uncomfortably. We could split the money evenly. Split. Like dividing inheritance was more urgent than dividing grief. I felt the room closing in. The dining table felt smaller. The air felt heavier. Daniel used to say, money reveals character. I never believed him. I thought love was stronger. But sitting there, staring at my own children negotiating my future, I began to see what he meant. Mark's voice grew sharper. If we wait too long, the market could drop. He was anxious, not about me, about timing, about profit. Emily's voice cracked slightly. Mark, maybe we should slow down. He turned toward her. We don't have time to be emotional. Emotional. That word hit me harder than anything else. My husband had been buried 3 days ago, and emotion was now an inconvenience? I stood up slowly. The chair scraped against the floor. The sound startled them. This table, I said quietly, was built by your father. They were silent. He sanded it himself. Mark looked down. He carved your initials underneath it when you were children. Emily's eyes widened slightly. I never showed you because it was our little secret. I ran my hand across the wood. You see numbers. I paused. I see your childhood. Silence. For a moment, something softened in Emily's expression, but Mark's jaw tightened. Memories don't pay bills. There it was, the truth, raw and unfiltered. Memories don't pay bills, but they build families. I realized something in that moment. This wasn't grief talking. This was fear. Fear of missing out on money. Fear of losing opportunity. Fear of inheritance slipping away. I walked toward the kitchen slowly. I could still hear them whispering behind me. Maybe she's in denial, Mark muttered. Denial. No, clarity. I stood at the kitchen counter, looking at the slightly crooked cabinet door Daniel never fixed. He used to joke, it reminds us we're human. Human. Not investors, not negotiators. Human. From the dining room, their voices grew louder again. She can't stay here alone, Mark insisted. We'll figure it out. Figure it out. Like I was a problem to solve. I leaned against the counter and closed my eyes. The tension between them was growing. They weren't just disagreeing with me anymore. They were disagreeing with each other over my house, over their father's legacy, over money. And I began to understand something important. This wasn't just about selling. This was about revealing who they had become, revealing what they valued, revealing what Daniel feared. I opened my eyes slowly. I wasn't angry anymore. I was observing. watching the cracks form, listening to their priorities surface. Because before making any decision, I needed to see clearly. And what I saw at the dining table that afternoon was not grief, it was calculation. Not sadness, but strategy. And that realization was the beginning of something they never expected.